All righty. Good morning, everybody. Good to see you once again. It's my favorite day of the week. It is Strategic Sunday, the best day in the whole wide world where I get to be with God's best people, his favorite people, his chosen people, his peculiar people, and do life. I'm grateful, thankful, and excited. I hope y'all had a great week. I had a very revelatory week. And as much as I have something prepared today, I do know today's going to probably be more of a conversation and a storytelling moment that I really believe you all be able to extrapolate some things from. So bear with me as we journey. But I really had a pivotal, literal, life-changing meeting this week that I did not intend to have. At least I'll explain in a few. I'll explain. I'll explain. But listen, good morning, you all. Again, I hope you all had a great week. Um, of course, we've been in this unplanned series about speaking into it, leaning into it, breaking into it, and all of that. And we've been talking about mantles, and it's going to tie into today's message for sure, because we've been talking about accessing a mantle and growing into a mantle and understanding the regional mantles and generational mantles and all of these things. But here's the basis of where I want to go today, just to kind of lay some framework. The other part of mantles is, in order to fully access a new one, you have to leave an old one, right? There is nothing in life, and this is simple but yet powerful. There is nothing in life that you can gain access to, something new, new realms, new adventures, without first leaving something behind. And many of us get caught up because we don't want to leave people. We don't want to leave our childhood home. We don't want to leave certain things behind. But in order to fully step into a new mantle or fully step into a new authority and fully step into something new, it comes with a cost. And many people get shaken or get messed up because of the cost of what you had to leave and the cost of preparing for the new. And we get caught up in what's been familiar, and it's hard. And so I kind of want to start that, but let me just give a scripture. I'm going to go into the story, and then we'll pray, and then we'll get going. But 1 Corinthians 13 and 11, it's a very familiar passage of scripture that I want to utilize to kind of get us going. When I was a child, I spoke as a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. We all know that scripture, but stick with me. I'm going to go somewhere. Again, 1 Corinthians 13:11. When I was a child, I spoke as a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. Let's pray and we'll open it up. Our Father and our God, we bless you and thank you for this day, for this time, for this moment. It's my hope and my prayer that today you do something, of course, different. But I want there to be a change of mind, an awakening that happens during this session today. God, that's my request. That's my clear request. I want there to be an aha moment in the hearts and the minds of these your people today. Not so much a moment of let's just shout, whatever, but no, today I want them to understand what has been blocking them, what has been hindering them that they didn't even see. So they can leave this moment and put away the things of old, put away what's been hindering them from the old season so they can fully embrace and run full throttle into the newness that you have for them, the new beginnings, the new favor, the new access, the mantles that you have for them. Let this be a moment, a Kairos moment in time where they wake up for real and they see for real and they hear for real on a different level to fully embrace who you've called them to be. Not who they think, but who you've called them to be. Not what they necessarily imagined, but who you really called them to be. Your word says that your ways are not our ways, your thoughts are not our thoughts, which lets us know that even though we know ourselves to a certain capacity, there's still another measure, there's still another level, there's still a deeper depth that only you know. So, Father, I ask that you reveal to us today. Show up as the revealer. Show up as the change agent. Show up as the one who will open our eyes and illuminate our path. Be a light unto our path and a lamp unto our feet. Light up the way so we know distinctively, with clarity, with precision, what to do next. I sense it, and I believe that many of us are hindered because we don't know what to do next. We feel the shift, we feel the difference, we feel it, but we can't always articulate it. So, Father, bring articulation today, bring clarity today, bring revelation today, and do that which only you can do today. In Jesus' holy, wonderful name, we pray. Amen. Amen and amen. Good morning again to everybody on. I know my energy probably feels different because I'm there's something that we got to get through. There's something we got to get through, and just stick with me. 1 Corinthians 13 and 11 again says, when I was a child, I spoke as a child, I understood as a child, I thought as a child, but when I became a man, I put away childish things. And good morning to everybody. Yes, good morning, good morning. I see you. I see you. I don't even have a title to give you for this message yet. It'll come. When you look at this passage of scripture, this scripture is a dissection of two worlds. It's a dissection of two worlds. This scripture shows us two mentalities. It shows us two seasons, and it shows us two patterns. The term child in this context is speaking about a former season. When you hear the word man, it's speaking about the current or the future season. And so, as I stated already, it is impossible for you to fully embrace a new season that God has been trying to get you to if you do not put away the old season. And because you've been in the old season all of your life or so long, it feels like a part of you is dying and you don't know how to function because this has been your pattern. This has been your strategy. This has been your language. This has been your style. This has been your palette. This has been your fashion for years. You were raised this way. You were cultivated this way. And so sometimes the hardest thing to do is actually put away the old to access the new. And so I wanted to start with this scripture, not so much I've heard people say, oh, that means it's a child. I'm putting away childish things like being petty. We're not talking about being petty. That's not what childish means here. Childish is just the term and the terminology used to speak of a former season. So here it is. We're talking about two different realms, two different mentalities, two different worlds. And the word child speaks to a former, and the word man speaks to the current or the future season. So one is not necessarily better than the other. It's more so a depiction of the stages of physical, spiritual, social, economical, logical stages of spiritual maturation and development. That's all this is. Because there is a season in your life where if it's a new season, there will be a childlike mentality. But then when you grow up, you have to put away the childlike mentality to fully embrace the adult mentality. So we're going to take the word, it says man, but in other words, adult maturity, to access the adult mentality. So we are all on a continued journey of growth, and we must realize that in order for us to step into the new, something or someone has no choice but to be left behind. I want to say that again, we know this stuff, but I want to make it very clear. Someone or something has to be left behind. It's not a if or maybe, or we could work it this way. No, there is no way. When you are putting on your clothes for the new day, yeah, if you want to be technical, you could put a shirt on top of a shirt on top of a shirt, but that is not how you wear clothes. The only way to put on a new garment is to take off the dirty one from yesterday. You cannot wear two at one time. And if you try to, the new one's going to get dirty because of the old garment of yesterday. You've sweated it out. It stinks. It's all of that. And the issue has been that right there. Many of you have been trying to put on a new garment on a dirty body or a new shirt on a dirty shirt because you feel like, well, maybe I can take this a little bit and hear me, hear ye, hear ye, hear me. In order to fully put on the new season, someone or something has to be left behind. So if I am sitting in a chair and I want to get some ice cream out of the freezer or something, I cannot sit in the chair and go open the freezer at the same time. I have to leave one place to get what I desire, which means the chair has to be left behind in order for me to get to the next place and grab what I want. Now, again, you can get technical, be like, oh, I can move the chair. Just grab the principle here. You have to get up because the ice cream, if you have a traditional freezer, is on a higher level than the chair in which you are currently in, which means you have to get up out of what you're comfortable in to go get what you want. Are you with me? So the Message version of this scripture says it like this: when I was an infant at my mother's breast, I gurgled and I cooed like an infant. When I grew up, I left those infant ways behind, or I left those infant ways for good. So this means you have to leave certain ways, you have to leave certain people, you have to leave certain communities, you have to leave certain relationships, ministries, etc. All right? I want to now pause. That's phase one. I have another phase to this, but I need to interject the story that I told you I want to interject. This week, I was in Dallas at a business meeting, and I think I told you while I met these women and they're prophetic individuals as well, who were helping me rebrand and get some things together from my personal ministry as a speaker, author, etc., as well as this particular ministry and what this looks like in the world and some things that we're going to be building before I roll it out to you all. In the midst of our meeting, we literally sat for like 9 hours and just hashed out stuff. That's how I spent my Juneteenth, and happy belated Juneteenth, everybody. I was doing that. And I was gaining some business strategies as to who I am. Quick business tip, and I'll keep it moving. I discovered that there's so many things I've learned how to do, but that doesn't mean it's what I'm called to do. And I think the other frustration with us has been we've done so many different things to survive. We've done so many different things because we got to bring in income to feed our children, to be with our families, etc. That you've learned a new skill set. That's good to know. But then when you're trying to brand yourself as an individual, you're having a hard time because you're like, I can do boom, 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 boom. And you got way too much. And it's hard to figure out, who are you? So part of this was that for me as well. I know how to do so much, but I had to go back to what is the driving force that God has called me to do. So we did that. And then the question was asked to me, what is hindering you from getting to this next space? And I discovered that there are certain family members and family and people that are hindering me. I don't know if I told y'all this, but the last month and a half or so, maybe 2 months or so, I've been waking up feeling like somebody's robbing me. I can't recall if I told y'all that. And I wasn't able to figure it out. And I'm like, why am I feeling tired when I got ample rest? Why am I feeling drained and I got ample rest? And all that kept ringing in my spirit was, you're being robbed, you're being robbed, you're being robbed. And I'm like, but how? Who? What? Stick with me, y'all. So I'm in the meeting and we're talking, and it got to the point where my coach at that moment literally said to me, why are you having a hard time fully articulating your vision? And y'all know I'm not like that. I am clear. And I was like, I couldn't get it out. And we literally had to pull for like 4 hours to get it out because I was bogged down with the responsibility of my job, things with my family, all these different things that were clouding me and draining me and pulling from my energy, that I'm not thinking creatively as I once was. My vision is becoming fogged. My aggression, if you will, in terms of plowing was becoming weakened, and I didn't even realize it. So what we discovered was this. It stemmed from some family things and family childhood traumas that are now showing up in my business. And I've been sensing, but I couldn't put my finger on it. And here's why. Because it's things that have been with me all of my life. And hear what I'm trying to say to you all while I'm telling this story of my revelation. There are some things that are hindering each of you that you don't even realize because you've accepted it as your normal because it's been with you all of your life. And this is why mentors, coaches, pastors, etc. are important, because they can help you see what you can't see. So for example, let me go deeper. They told me, and this is so, so powerful, and I'll have to probably teach a lesson on it separately one day. I discovered that one of my defense mechanisms is agreement. Check this out. Check it out. Agreement in its totality is not bad, but out of context is. I grew up with a lot of verbal abuse. I grew up with a lot of confrontation. Now, everything wasn't horrible, but I grew up in a space where, even like y'all seen my face, and I feel like I've told y'all this before too, I was told by certain people when I was a child, if you don't do this, I'm gonna knock the other side of your face straight. This came from the people I revere as a child. I was called two-faced. I was called all these different names. And so growing up, this is like 6, 7, 8 years old, right? These are the years where you're developing who you are, what is your context, what is your view of life. I didn't know kingdom strategies then. I didn't know, even then, words like trauma and mental health, nobody was talking like that then. That's recent. People talk about that now. Nobody was talking about that back then. That wasn't a thing. Especially in the African American community, you're taught, take it, shut up, keep moving, don't be weak, don't be a punk, take it, right? But I say that to say, I learned to agree with some things that I did not really agree with, but to survive and to get through the trauma and to get through the confrontation, I agreed to what I didn't agree to because I didn't want to argue and I didn't want to be traumatized anymore. Here's the issue with that. When you agree, even though you don't want to, you have now entered a false agreement. And you have now entered into a false covenant that you did not know you entered into. You made decisions trying to survive. You made decisions trying to make it, but you did not understand that when you agreed, just thinking it's my way of survival, you actually entered a soul tie. You actually entered a covenant. You actually entered a thing. And so now, fast forward. Again, I'm telling you my story, but I'm just showing you all. Because that happened at childhood, that became my process. So then, when I serve in a certain ministry and I work with certain leaders or certain people, the reason why certain things hurt so bad is because that moment triggered the unresolved childhood trauma. And so I'm not just dealing with today's attack, I'm dealing with today's attack that is being laced by the false agreement. All of this, let me try to bring it back a bit. All of this is because the enemy knows who you are. And y'all remember I taught a message called Satanic Concentration. This is what this is about. And it's funny because I've been when I tell you this revelation was hitting, and I'm like, I've been preaching this and I've been telling it to y'all, but it wasn't penetrating. Like, hey, God is like, I'm talking to you too. That's for you too. And it's like, whoa, but I didn't see it. I didn't see it. Then it throws me off. I said, how can I be so prophetic and this, that, and third and see for everybody else? But then it's still moments. But it's okay. It's just how this goes. So this is satanic concentration. And this is why the Bible talks about the wheat and the tare growing together. I forget the scripture. I think it's in Matthew. It's in my phone. Let me see. I believe it's in Matthew. I thought I screenshotted it, but I guess I didn't. But I think it's like Matthew 13 or something. But the scripture basically talks about how there's wheat and tare. And the individuals of that time were asking, should we remove the weeds? And the scripture said that they were instructed, do not remove the weeds because it has to grow together. And there's a reason for that. When you look at satanic concentration, the enemy knows who you are before you do. Yes, Matthew 13:24. Thank you. Yes. Let me try to pull it up real quick because I want to read this to you guys. But the enemy knows who you are before you do. And so the enemy knows if I can get to you before you come into the fullness of who you are, I can add an insecurity that you now grow up with. I can add a deformity that you grow up with. I can add an issue that you grow up with. So that way, when you come into the revelation of who you are, you don't even realize that it's a problem because it's been with you for so long and you've accepted it. False agreements. You've accepted there's no perfect family, there's no perfect marriage, there's no perfect relationship. So this is my burden and I'm going to carry it. And you don't even realize that you're living under a curse until you get around free people and they help you realize, you know, that's not right. But because you've carried it for so long, you're used to it. And then we do churchy religious stuff. I guess this is my thorn to carry. I guess this is my burden to carry. That's not. This was the enemy plotting against you before you came into the awareness of who you are and had you get into false agreements and entanglements. That way it's growing with you and you think it's a part of your DNA. And it's not a part of your DNA. It's part of a dysfunction. And this is why your business might not be taking off to the fullest, or your ministry or certain relationships, because you keep looking through broken glasses. You keep looking through a skewed perspective, all because of what happened to you as a child. Many adults are only adults because of their age, but your mentality is what it was when you went through that trauma, whatever it was. Many of us, we got to be mature in this, y'all. This is a mature conversation today. Yes, arrested development. Yes, yes, yes. It's because you're stuck in the last trauma, the last hurt, the last betrayal. So now you won't go get business partners because you don't trust people. Now you won't take that leap of faith because you don't trust anybody. Now you won't start a new relationship because the last one took you for all you had. I'm guilty of it. That's why I haven't been dating and things. Just being honest, I still have residue. I'm not walking around like, oh my God, but it's like, it's a whole thing, right? All right, let's read this scripture real quick and see if I could pull out what I saw. It's the parable of the weeds, Matthew 13:24-30. Jesus told them another parable. The kingdom of heaven is like a man who sowed good seed in his field. But while everyone was sleeping, his enemy came and sowed weeds among the wheat and went away. When the wheat sprouted and formed heads, then the weeds also appeared. Y'all caught that? When the wheat sprouted, when the blessing sprouted, when the success sprouted, when the favor sprouted, then the weeds also sprouted. Because while it says, while they were asleep, an enemy planted weeds at the same time. So they grew together. Verse 27, the owner's servant came to him and said, Sir, didn't you sow good seed in your field? Question mark. Where then did the weeds come from? An enemy did this, he replied. The servant asked him, do you want us to go and pull them up? Verse 29, no, he answered, because while you are pulling up the weeds, you may uproot the wheat with them. Let both grow together until the harvest. At that time, I will tell the harvesters, first collect the weeds and tie them in bundles to be burned. Then gather the wheat and bring it into the barn. What you're seeing here is an example of satanic concentration. Here it is, good seed was sown. But while you were resting, why? Because the enemy, this is why spiritual warfare happens at that during the third watch, while you're resting, because the enemy thinks you're weak while you're resting. And now you have the enemy sowing weeds into the field in which you sowed good seed. Because the enemy knows if you pull the weeds out while you're still in development, you're going to uproot the whole process. And so the strategy became, let the wheat and the tare grow together. But what I'm trying to get you to see is some of you still have weeds that are on you. So yes, you're shouting. Yes, you're growing. Yes, you got your degree. Yes, you're all of these things, but you didn't realize there's still a weed wrapped around your neck. There's still a weed that's woven into your vision. There's still a weed somewhere. But now you have to figure out, what is the weed? I discovered that the weed for me was childhood trauma and false agreements and false covenants. So then it blew me away, because I said, how in the world am I pastoring? Am I leading? Is God's using me? And yet I'm still weeded. It's crazy. But this is why you have to understand it. You cannot get confused and think whoever your favorite preacher or leader is or whatever, just because you're skilled and the power of God does come upon you, does not mean that there's not healing in areas that you still got to work on. And this is not saying that you're living in sin. That is not the conversation we're having. What I'm having with you is a conversation to have you go back and look, what in the world is hindering me? If you've got to make a list of, every time I try to do this, this hinders me. What is it? How, every time I try to do this, what is it? Make that list and then try to figure out, where is it stemming from? Is this residue from the last relationship? Is it residue from trauma? Is it residue from whatever? Figure that out, because I promise you, the way you are moving in your business, the way you are moving as a parent, the way you are moving in ministry, the way you are moving as a sister, as a brother, however you are showing up in humanity and in life, you are showing up as such because of how you grew up as a child. And depending, and that's not bad. There's good traits as well. So it's all the way around. But whatever that is, you have to discover it. Now, for me, I was a little aware of some of the things, but I was like, well, this is family, so I can't cut them off. And this is this, and I can't do that. And I can't, this is my blood, or this is this. But it's like, but if they're hurting you, you've got to make a separation. And it hurts because that's who you grew up with. That's why family stuff is always the hardest, because these are the people that birthed you, you grew up with. So same thing, you didn't even realize it could have been good seed, but somewhere in the growth, weeds were attached to somebody or something. And because it's your blood, because it's your relative, because it's all of that, I got to stay with them. I can't leave it. I can't leave it. And you're not even realizing that every day you all stay together, every moment you all stay together, it is tainting the vision. It is tainting your energy. It is tainting you. This is why I start this conversation with that scripture. When I was a child, I spoke as a child. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. Notice how that scripture did not say I necessarily rebuked childish things. It says I made a conscious decision to take this part off and put it to the side, because I'm realizing that the wheat and the tare grew together. And now that I have the knowledge and I've hit full maturation, now I have to do the work to remove these weeds out of my life. And then the issue, depending on who you are and what this scenario might look like for you. Like for me, I don't have a problem setting boundaries. The issue I have, if it's a certain family member or whomever, is I have this internal warfare that likes to wear me out. And I'm just being super transparent with y'all. Because as a pastor, well, let's take that even off. As a human being, I love people. As a human being, I want to give my all to people. As a human being, I want to just do all of that. But you got to realize then there are people that will manipulate your heart. There are people that know you're the giver. You're the one that's going to pray. You're the one that's going to show up. But now let's look at this in business now, though. If you have a budget for your business that you planned for, and then you got family members who you love, who you're like, I set boundaries, but I'm a whatever, who always hit you up at the last minute with their emergencies and project on you. I'm about to lose this. Now you feel guilty because this is the wheat and the tear together. You feel when they ask you, you're not just seeing them as a person asking you, it's in your gut, it's in your wiring. So this is someone of my blood needing this. Not once taking accountability for their poor management, not once taking accountability for their inadequacies, not once doing any of that, but they're projecting on you. And because you've been nurtured all your life in this pattern, again, it's easy to cut off a coworker. There's no investment there. It's easy to cut off a random friend. There's no investment there. I'm talking about the things that you have investment with, that are like soul ties that you grew up with. So again, in this business analogy, here it is, you have funding for your business and you're trying to figure out why am I not hitting my financial goals? Why is this happening? It's because there's a leak somewhere and you're not realizing that every time that family member hits you up, because it's an emergency and I got to help them. You're now taking from your business budget to go help their emergency. And now you might think ethically, well, that's good. That's my family. That's whatever. But you're not realizing, but that's affecting your business. Then there's someone, I gotta be careful. We'll leave it there. Well, no, we're not. So then the other part is, I'll be honest with y'all. When it comes to ministry, right? Even in this, there's a budget for the growth of this ministry. And I'm gonna be completely honest with y'all. There's certain people who need help. And I like to help. And there's certain people with whatever they're going through that I discovered triggers things I went through as a kid. And so it's like, man, I know what you're going through. And this is a ministry. And one of my goals is to take part of the funding and help someone with a light bill if I can, or gas if I can, or whatever. You would think that's great. Yes, it is great, because giving and helping others is ministry. But the bottom line still stands. Whenever I have to do that, that is taking from something. Are you getting what I'm trying to say? And this is where warfare and things get different, because the enemy will no longer try to trick you with smoking or drinking or whatever. Like, that's not it. He's going to try to play on your heart. And so every time you have to take from your business budget to go help somebody in your bloodline or do whatever, it's throwing things off. And it might be $10 here, $20 here, but in the grand scheme of things, it becomes a lot. So I'm saying all this to tell you, and for those that came in, you got to go back and hear this from the beginning, because I'm really trying to open this. You have to realize that you make those kinds of decisions based upon your mentality and your upbringing. It all goes back to the beginning. And although the gesture is a good gesture, it wasn't a planned and budgeted for gesture. And so because of that, now you're having to work extra hard, you're irritated, and you're tired. And so that's what's been going on with me. I'm working extra hard at work. I work long days. I'm up at 4 in the morning and I don't get home till like 6 o'clock at night most days. I drive an hour to and from. So then I'm stuck in traffic. By the time you're doing all that, you come home, you're trying to work on your vision. Now you're drained and now you're tired and you're trying to work over to replace what was taken. So remember, I told you when we first started, I kept saying, I feel like I'm being robbed. That's what it's been. It's been this satanic concentration of the enemy trying to manipulate how I even show up and inspire and help people. And y'all, here's where this thing blessed me. If you remember, if it wasn't last week, it was the week before. Remember, I told you that Pastor Mike Phipps just prophesied to me. Remember, we said that God was saying that I've made you acquainted with trouble. I've made you acquainted with grief. The other part of what he prophesied was you're going to have to shift how you help certain people because they're taking advantage. And you have to learn, like God's called you to pour, God's called you to help, but you've got to figure out how to set it up the right way. I'm the type of guy, if I have a whole apple tree, I'm gonna give you the whole apple tree. The issue with giving you the whole apple tree is God's like, I gave that apple tree to you to eat off of as well. So now what are you eating? Everybody else is eating, and I'm over here hungry because I gave the whole tree away. So this is a conversation about principles. This is a conversation about morals and values. This is a conversation about stewardship. So understand, and again, I'm just telling you this story. I'm really hoping this is helping you. Identify in your life, what are you doing because of your upbringing? How are you showing up? It doesn't make you a bad person to make anybody bad. It's a matter of you were taught to operate this way. And so you would never look at it. I even thought about counseling. You always hear it about men more distinctively. Man, I ain't going to counseling, whatever. Well, some of that's because they don't even know what's wrong. How can you go to counseling and tell them something if you don't even know what's wrong? I didn't know that I was still dealing with this level of residue from childhood. So now that I've discovered it, it's like, okay. And I'm now seeing what I have to do on a business level, personal level, and ministry level. And that's just my story and my transparency. But let me now go back to the next phase of this message. The first phase of this message, as I started, we were talking about, for those that just came in, 1 Corinthians 13:11. When I was a child, I spoke as a child, I understood as a child, I thought as a child, but when I became a man, I put away childish things. And what we discussed was this is a conversation of two realms. This is a conversation of two mentalities, a bound mentality and a growing mentality. And we understood that this is a conversation and it shows us stages of where we are physically, spiritually, socially, economically, logistically, all of that. And when you understand where you are and how you're showing up, you then can understand, how do I put away what I need to put away? You have to leave certain things. The other thing that we said before I go to the phase 2 of this is, in order for you to put away childish things, and childish is not talking about petty gossip. We're not talking about that. We're talking about realms. We're talking about putting away this realm to access the next realm. The only way you can access what you desire is you have to leave somebody. You have to leave something. You have to leave a mentality. You cannot bring a spewed mentality into a new one. This is why when the Hebrews were leaving Egypt, and we've talked about this before, they were in the wilderness because of murmuring and complaining. And some people had to die off in that season of waiting, because God knew if they get to the promised land, the land of milk and honey, their old mentality, their old way of thinking is going to spoil the milk that's in the promised land. And that's what's happening. You can move to a new region, but if you have the same mindset, you're going to corrupt that region. You can go into a new marriage, but if you haven't healed from the last one, you're going to go into that again and mess that up. You can go to a new church and a new ministry, but if you haven't healed, it's going to be the same cycle over and over and over and over and over again. So you must leave in order to get to the next level. Here's the phase 2 of where I want to go now. And again, for those that mentioned, you just got to go and get the replay because I can't go all the way back just yet. Psalms 1 and 3. Psalms 1 and 3. It reads, "And he shall be like a tree planted by the streams of water that bringeth forth its fruit in its," keyword, its, in its season, whose leaf also doth not wither, and whatsoever he doth shall prosper. I'm going to read it again, and I'm going to emphasize some pieces before we break this down. Psalms 1 and 3. "And he shall be like a tree planted." Planted means I'm focused, I'm secure, I'm aware, I'm locked in. "He shall be like a tree planted by the streams of water." What does the water and the streams represent? Nourishment, mutually beneficial relationships, things that are helping me grow, things that are helping me survive, not leaking streams, not diverted streams, not blocked streams, but planted by streams of water. It's flowing, it's nurturing, it's beneficial. That brings forth its fruit in its season. I'm emphasizing the it's because understand, all of us have a sunrise and all of us have a sunset. And you are only going to be fruitful in your season. There is a season, you see it with music artists and people all the time. They'll rack up #1 records. They'll be the vocal beast, the vocal whatever in that arena or era. And when that time is over, it's as if they kind of never existed. Prime example, we all know who Diana Ross is, but is Diana Ross a chart-topping person today? No. But was she? Yes. She was fruitful in her season, but her season of fruitfulness in that capacity has been long gone and over. Is she alive? Yes. Is she well? Yes. But that season's over. I'm bringing this to your attention because as we've been talking about mantles and as we've been talking about your businesses and ministries and doing all this work to get healed so you could actually be the fullness of who you are, you've got to do it quickly. Because if you don't do it in your season of fruitfulness, you are going to be just another number in another statistic. And you're going to be like somebody else who all of their goals and dreams are now in the grave. You have all these great ideas and you're like, but why am I being blocked? It's because you never realized it was the trauma. But so I'm saying that to say it's going to be hard. Tears will flow. It will feel painful. But in the moment you feel like not pushing through to get the healing you deserve and you need so you can be your best self, not just for your family, but for you. You've got to think, if you don't do it as soon as possible, you're going to miss your window of fruitfulness. You're going to miss your window of prosperity. There's only a certain amount of time you're going to have physical strength like you got it now. There's only a certain amount of time you're going to have the vision and the ability to hear and the capacity like you have it now. And I'm not saying that to be a Debbie Downer. It's the human experience. We all have a rise and a fall. And if you keep allowing the enemy to plot against you, to delay the time, to keep you burdened, to blog your vision, you are going to miss your fruitful season. Many of you, this speaks of streams of water. Streams of water talks about is essentially streams of resources. Many of you have all the resources you need, but because your vision's been blurred because of trauma, you haven't been able to see it. There's people that God has put in your network that you can call to invest into your thing, but you're afraid to ask. You're afraid to move because of the trauma. And because someone else hurt you and manipulated you, you don't want to open up that way to somebody again. Or you're moving slowly because the last time you were all in, you were taken advantage of. So understand this passage of scripture means that there is a season for fruitfulness. There is a season for dominance and success. And as we've discussed concerning the mantles and all of that, even when you're trying to put on a new mantle, if you don't grow into it and dominate and let the mantle give you supernatural strength to do what you can't do in your own strength, you are going to miss out. You can only be fruitful in your time. And time comes and time goes. I really need y'all to hear what I'm saying. You can only be fruitful in your time. And if you allow the devices of the enemy to keep you in a childlike state, then you will never become the man or the adult that God has called you to be and put away the childish things. I hope all of that makes sense. Again, for those of you that missed it, you've got to go back and see how we built this up, because this one's hard to go back and try to do because it's not one of those bullet point messages. I don't even have a title. Y'all want to help me with a title today? You can throw some titles in the chat. I don't even have a title to tell you today. But what I'm trying to get you to see as we wrap up, and I want to open the floor, and I would really love to hear your feedback to make sure you heard what I was trying to communicate and what God was trying to communicate. Because what I understand is effective communication is not just what's being said. Effective communication is what the recipient is hearing. And I want to make sure you heard exactly what I said. Because even that, like I just said earlier, whatever your upbringing is, you're going to process what I'm saying to you based upon the way you were brought up. And if you still have trauma, you're going to hear me with trauma ears. And that's just what it is. This is not an attack on anybody. This is me just telling you, I guarantee you, because that's why I was transparent and told you my story of my recent revelation I had. I went to this business meeting ready for business, suited and booted, and I left feeling like a kid. Not in a bad way, but like they just read me for filth. And I'm over here like, whoa, it's been a long time since someone was able to read me like that. And that's a good thing. I welcome it. It was a safe place. It was a trusted place. I welcome it. And that's the other part. On this healing journey, you have to get with the people you trust. So understand too, and that's what the Bible talks about, there's many coaches and all of that. I'm about to go get a counselor because I know there's a level of that family trauma that I've dealt with that I do not know how to work on my own. So as your pastor, your coach, your mentor, whoever I am to you, I'm just being transparent so you know too, if I can go do it, so can you. As a leader, as a best-selling author, as all the different things I've achieved, none of that takes away the fact that you still got trauma. You still got wounds. And the only way as a pastor and a leader I can continue to show up for you is I have to continue to keep working on me. That's a whole nother piece. You never want to be under a pastor, mentor, or leader or whatever that is not continually working on their self. They can only give you the level of their healing. They can only give you the level of their study. The moment you get to a leader that thinks they know it all, they've been there, done that, then you'll be stuck. And the way you know is they keep repeating themselves the same message over and over and over and over and over and over. It's like you ain't got a revelation yet. God ain't told you nothing new yet. God ain't really. We still talking about that. If you are still talking about the same things you talked about 10 years ago, you are dysfunctional. You have a dysfunction. Because God is always speaking. But if you're traumatized in your mind and your ears, you can't hear, you're not hearing him. And this thing can go on. I'm going to say one more thing and I'm going to hush. Whatever your thing is, it shows up in your business, but then it shows up in your relationships, and then you're mad again. Then when you're mad, you get depressed. Then when you get depressed, you start spazzing out and eating like crazy. So now the rest of your money's going down the drain because now you're eating because you're emotional eating. Now you're gaining weight. So now your body's physically tired because you're gaining weight because you're trying to sedate yourself when the issue is not even that you're hungry. Your issue is unresolved issues and trauma. I'm saying that to say it's a snowball effect. So then you're trying to figure out, where did my money go? Yes, Liberty, it cycles. Yes, it's all these things, and you're not paying attention. And when you stop, it's like, wait a minute, wait. Exactly. Yes. Now your self-esteem is jacked up because now I can't get in that dress. I can't get in that suit. So now they're inviting you to the party. You can meet more people for your business, new friends, new partnerships, new relationships. You're now not showing up because you've gained weight. You feel horrible. Now you've got diabetes. Now you see what I'm saying? Like, all of this is tied together more than you realize. It all is tied together. So could it be that your business is out of block because you've got unresolved issues in you? Could it be, if you're a writer, you're dealing with writer's block because there's something unresolved in you? Could it be because, again, all this stuff drains you, so you don't even have the energy anymore because you're waking up drained every day because you haven't put away childish things, or you haven't uprooted the weeds that were put into your life? The enemy tried to stop you before you knew who you were, right? So that's that. God, we bless you and we thank you. And it's my prayer that these your people truly heard that which you want to communicate to them today. And for those who will catch the replay, God, let it permeate in their mind and their spirit to understand what it is you are trying to communicate to us today, so we can do the soul work. This is an issue and a burden of the soul. This is an issue and a burden of childhood and wounds and unresolved issues. Help us to see, where is the residue and where are the soul issues, and give us the strength to not get in our own head and be afraid to work on us. It doesn't make us weak. It doesn't make us less than. It doesn't make us a punk. It doesn't make us any of these things that the culture would try to project on us to make us not deal with ourselves. As your word says, create in me a clean heart and purify me. Do an inside job. Do an inside work. Create in me. Yeah, they did me wrong, but God, do it in me, create in me. Yeah, that relationship didn't work. Yeah, that hurt, but I'm not even worried about that. God, do it in me. Create in me a clean heart and purify, 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 so I can see clear, so we can hear clearly, so we can pick up where we left off. We dropped the ball at our last trauma. Help us to pick up the ball and dribble again. Pick up the pen and write again. Pick up the vision and dream and see again. And no longer will we make decisions based off of traumas and residues that we did not see. And for those that are not able to see it, God, open their eyes to see it, just like you did for me this week. I had no idea. I'm preaching, I'm teaching, I'm traveling, I'm in front of crowds of thousands and doing all these different things, and I couldn't even see it. And it can get confusing because while people are being healed, while people are getting breakthroughs, while people are getting, it'll make you think you're okay. And the reality is you're not. Help your people to see, Father. Help them to understand. Reveal it to them. And then when you reveal it, show them who the counselors are. Show them who their network is, that they can process together so they can show up as the best mother they can be, as the best friend they can be, as the best CEO they can be, the entrepreneur they can be. Whatever the context is, help them to show up, not just for church, but for humanity, for the world around them, for their communities, for their families. Help them see clearly and with precision So, Father, meet them where they are, permeate, purify, bring clarity, and bring restoration. In fact, I'm decreeing and declaring over you now that as you embark on documenting where are the traumas, where are the issues, and you begin to do the work, that it's going to be like 10, 20 years of aging has come off of your life, where you're going to be, your skin's going to be clearer, your energy is going to be lighter, everything about you is going to be freer because you're no longer carrying an unseen or unknown burden. You're going to see it, you're going to feel it, and you're going to release it so you can operate in the fullness and the totality of who God has called you to be. And you will now break the generational curse because you've identified what it was, and your children will not have to go through what you went through. And the community around you will not have to go through what you went through. So, Father, we thank you for it. We bless you for it. And I decree and declare that there will be no demonic force that tries to retaliate against you and put you back in that cycle. We decree and declare now the cycle is broken. The curse is broken. The trauma is broken. The pain is broken. The lack is broken. It's over and it will not return. May you be bold. May you be strong. May you be courageous and do the work you need to do to be the best version of yourself. No more false agreements and entanglements. We uproot everything you've agreed to that you didn't want to out of survival mode and survival methods. Everything you've partnered with that you didn't even realize you partnered with because of your proximity and associations. We break it now in the name of Jesus. Even within me, we break it now in the name of Jesus. No more false agreements or partnerships, but only kingdom mutually beneficial relationships that will help you get to your next level. It is so, and it cannot be otherwise. In Jesus' name, amen and amen. If anyone wants to open and share anything, you can. Again, I really hope you heard this message. I still don't know what to call it. But that's that. Also, StratijeeLHE, if you have the giving links for those that want to sow a seed, you can sow a seed. Your tithe, your offering would have you. Thank you. And let God lead you with that. StratijeeLHE, talk to me. I see your hand up.
Good morning, Pastor.
Top of the morning.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for being so transparent.
Absolutely.
I've never experienced this where a pastor, a leader in my life, I haven't experienced it, could be so transparent as to what you're experiencing and going through, and for it to be so freshly, it just happened this past week for you, and you know, allowing yourself to decrease so God can increase and be a blessing to us, and so that we can heal. Because in you speaking and sharing this, I've always struggled with why there's certain areas in my vision I just don't write because I have not a clue. I'm just stuck. And that's when it comes to my personal brand and my career and calling, when, you know, those areas of the 12 areas, I'm always stuck. I can do health and wellness. I can do legacy. I can do somehow, I can, you know, I think I know what I want to leave, but I don't know what I want to do.
Right, right.
Or what I'm called to do, or what my brand is, what identifies me. And I'm always stuck with that part. So I always skip over that, you know. I can do friendships, I can do, but this right here gave me context, gave me understanding. And now I know that I need to go back and make that list of what's hindering me, and what is the trauma issues, because I don't even know, and I'm sure it's trauma from childhood, but I don't know where to find it, how to identify that.
Right, right. And that's the caveat of all this, why it's so revelatory. You don't know. Which is why, like you even just said with me, you have to decrease. You cannot view yourself like you got it all together, because none of us do. That's not saying we're not strong, we're not whatever, but there are still levels that we don't know. And so, right, the best way to start, and this is for all of you, of how do you identify the next time you find yourself getting irritated, the next time you feel yourself, you know, about to blow up, or something's off, or you feel hindered or whatever, stop and say, wait a minute, that's something, and write it down. So then you can start tracing, why am I apprehensive to this invitation? Why am I apprehensive to this partnership? Why all of that? Again, for those in business who might be having money issues, how come my money keeps acting funny? And you start documenting that so that you can see. But then the reality is, once you identify it, yes, you can get on YouTube and listen to stuff, but you've got to go get help. You cannot do it on your own. And I think God also just allows us in life to operate in this context because it reminds us we have to be relational. We have to be amongst each other. We all need each other. There is no one person who is just an island by themselves. It's not even healthy. It's not. All this I can do bad by myself. It sounds good in theory, but no, you can't. No, you can't. It's killing you. If you want to find success, go by. No, how's that saying go? If you want to, matter of fact, hold on.
If you want to go fast, go by yourself. But if you
Yup.
want to go far, go with.
Exactly. Yes. If you want to go fast, go by yourself. If you want to go further, you go with someone or with a team. Or yeah, you can go fast alone, but then what? Do you want to go further? Do you want longevity? Do you want peace of mind? Do you want stability? This is why you got people who are overnight successes and they go commit suicide because they got there fast, but they didn't have the heart, the mentality to sustain. This is why people that win the lottery, they get $1 million. It's been proven statistically that people that win the lottery go broke within 4 to 5 years because you still had the old mentality. You had the old mentality. Here we go. You can't put new wine in old wineskins. Like, this stuff is simple, but I think life can fog us that we miss it. As an individual, every day, you've got to do work on you. You're putting all these hours in on the job, your kids, I get it, but don't forget about you. You've got to put in the work for you. You've got to. You cannot show up for anybody else until you show up for yourself. And don't make everything religious either. Like, we're using faith-based context because I'm a pastor and a preacher. But even then, and y'all will see things roll out. I understand my assignment is not just to the church. My assignment is to humanity. And we'll talk about that more later. But that was part of the business side of things. But my assignment is to help people of all walks of life discover who they are. And I do it by way of Christian faith-based principles because that's what I believe. But the goal is not to get you to go huck and buck and shout in somebody's church. The goal is to get you free as a human being. The goal is to see you take your dream vacation. The goal is to see you happy and healthy. The goal is to see you free from cancer and things that are bothering you, your physical body because of traumas. That's the goal. The goal is to see you live your best life. And of course, to give God the glory and the honor and the praise for it. I really don't care, y'all. And this is just me talking, and I'm gonna know because everybody's hand is up. I really don't care to go to another conference or another thing and another. I'm just saying. My bad,
Yes.
Shalay. I went on a tangent. I'm sorry.
No, it's not. Don't apologize. Sorry, not sorry. Listen, I want to highlight something else you said
Yes.
that resonated with me, and it's dangerous
Mm-hmm.
because we're oftentimes you could be under a leader, and they can only give you at the level of their trauma or where they're at. So they're limited.
Yeah.
And you really hit the nail on the head. You said they just repeating. And
Yes.
I've been in that situation, like, why are you talking about the same thing and saying it in a different form? You're saying the same thing and saying nothing. And
Right.
we have to identify that because we'll make excuses for that leader
Yep.
because we're so committed to the leader and we're not
Yep.
seeing God. We're just seeing, oh, well, we pray for him. We're supposed to pray. Okay, use wisdom. Thank you for being transparent and speaking truth. That's why I love and I'm so grateful to have you as my pastor, my leader, and be a part of the strategic gathering on Sunday because this is life altering. This is life changing. I want to grow.
Yeah.
And this is a safe space. So I thank you, Pastor, and I honor you for your obedience, for your transparency. I don't get this. I haven't got this before.
Wow.
There's a lot of, I realized there's a lot of pride I was experiencing. And that was what,
Mhm.
that was my friction. I was like, just say it, but it was being taught that no, you just don't say that. Just be quiet, sweep it under the rug or
Right.
whatever. Like so, yeah.
Yeah,
That's all.
yeah.
Thank you.
And thank y'all for being receptive and allow me to be transparent. Even to your point, and Imma say this in hush, even with as fresh as this revelation is, I was struggling, like, should I share this? Because 'Cause I'm like, I'm literally still working on it. Like, I'm not even I haven't even I mean, I have it's so fresh. And this level of transparency and vulnerability can open the door for attacks from the enemy and different things. But I'm covered. I'm good. I ain't worried about that. Because if my transparency can help you, then that's all it's about. And like you said, pastors are not doing this. They're not. It's annoying. I digress. Aaliyah, I see your hand. Talk to me. And y'all, if we can, I don't ever want to stifle anybody, but let's try to keep it as short as possible because there's quite a few hands, and I do want to make sure I can get to everyone to share and hear. But go ahead, talk to me, Aaliyah. I see your hand up.
Hello.
There it goes. Hey there, how are
Hi.
you?
I'm doing amazing.
Awesome.
Um, yo, Pastor Levi, what you just said, it is so true. Like everything that you said from the beginning. And I was like wondering if you were in my mind because I was up the entire night and these are the things that I was thinking about.
Mm,
First of all, like how you say that, we have to sacrifice certain things when going into a new season, when we have to leave certain things behind. That
mhm,
is so true because God has been showing to me for the past few weeks that in previous seasons of my life, He wanted like to take me out of a season, but I
mm,
was bringing old things. I kept taking all things with me into every new season. That's why I never really got to experience the fullness of what God was trying to give me in that season because there were
mhm.
like expired connections, expired relationships,
Yes.
expired patterns. It's just so many things that was of old season I kept taking into every new season with me. That's why
Mhm,
I kept experiencing certain things and
mhm.
certain delays because I didn't want to let go of the old.
Right.
I wanted to take the old into me, even though God was showing me that I need to leave this behind. Like he would give me like, certain hints that, hey, this is not for you and you cannot take that there.
Mhm, mhm,
And I would think that I'm this cool person, have this good heart, and still take it with me. And I
mhm,
saw that like I was literally delaying myself because I didn't want to let go of things that God was telling me to let go of, even patterns that God was
yes.
telling me, hey, you gotta adjust in this area. You gotta fix yourself in this area. You cannot take this behavior into a new season.
Right.
And literally a few weeks ago, he showed me that, hey, this is why you never really got to experience the fullness because you kept taking the old things into the new season when
Yes.
I told you to leave that behind, right? And the
Yep.
next thing you said that, this is something that I tell my mom
Mhm,
a lot of times. And so something you say that sometimes that you need to like let go of family members.
mhm,
And it's actually a difficult thing to do because they are family members.
mhm.
But God has shown me a while back that some family members I just cannot deal with.
Correct.
And I love them as my family, but if I keep dealing with them, they're going to just keep me back, you
Exactly.
know?
Exactly.
And I've had situations where I would like cry about why is it I'm always experiencing battles from my family, but
Mhm.
with strangers, it is so easy.
Of
But then
course.
I got to realize that, it was just the enemy using family members to like keep me in a state
Yeah.
of depression.
Mhm.
because I've had like family member, they would tell me like the worst things. They would laugh at me.
Mhm.
They would I had my sister tell me a time that, things would be better off if I wasn't around.
Mm.
And I started crying when she told me that, but I was like, yo, the enemy was just speaking through her, and she was
Yes.
like, our life would be better if, you weren't here. And I
Mhm.
was like, what the and when I caught myself, I was like, yo, I'm a very good person, and I'm not gonna let you tell me that to throw me off,
Mhm. Mhm.
and like I've had like family always wanting to be in competition with me, but I never understood it until God gave me the revelation,
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was like, I wanted to like cut these people off because I see that what they were doing, but
Mhm.
now I have the wisdom to know that, yo, you're my family, but I don't need to deal with your behavior. I don't need to,
Exactly.
I love you and what's not, but I just don't need to accept it.
Yeah. Don't
So
have
that was so true what you said.
Yeah, no, and thank you for sharing that. Like I said, that's the hardest struggle when it comes to family and those you have soul ties with, blood, all of that, because you don't have to accept it. But like what you just said, because everybody would like to say, "Oh, they used to call me names, but I got over it." You probably really didn't. Like you said, that statement of "we could do better without you." Yes, you're still functioning, but I'm quite certain that that did something. Like you said, yeah, you cried. But what I want your assignment to be is open that. What was it about that statement and your upbringing? And can you see residue still there? That's one area. Because I'm sure we all probably got multiple or whatever, but that is one area because statements like that stay with you. Just like I told y'all with my example, when they told me I'll knock your face straight. Clearly, you hear me repeating it years later. That means it stuck with me. I never forgot. And just because I can function and say it to you and not break down in tears does not mean that that didn't hurt. Obviously, it is. I'm talking about it. 25 plus years later, however many years later, that stuff gets ingrained in you and you got to carve it out. But thank you for sharing that, though. And so, for anyone that's ever dealt with name calling or any of that, and it coming from someone that's in your family, it hits different. A stranger's one thing, but family's another thing. Miranda, talk to me. I see your hand up. And again, thank you, Aaliyah.
Good morning, Pastor. How
Hey,
you
hey,
doing?
how are you?
This has this has been super awesome because I'm in that same space, if you will. And I'm gonna give you two scenarios because something interesting happened to me some weeks ago when I went back home. I came home to Atlanta, and while I was there, I met a family in the hotel, and they were just supernaturally just, drawn to me during breakfast time. This young lady opened up to me because her daughter had just graduated from a college in New York. Well, the daughter and the dad had a altercation, and the daughter said something that stood out to the mother, which was this. She said to her dad, "Oh, you just mad because I have a degree and you don't." It was a trigger
Mm,
word, a trigger point that did something to him where he like, "Ugh," And so it built up over time. She said that her daughter and husband had been going at each other for 2 years back to back. She don't understand why it was going on.
mm-hmm.
So the next altercation they had, he really blew up and they got into a physical fight
Wow.
that led to his arrest that
Wow.
later on that night when I got back to the hotel, because I'm looking like, what in the world is going on?
Right, for
So she
sure.
came to me and she was crying. And she said, I feel like I'm between a rock and a hard place. So
Yeah.
this is where the Lord opened my eyes through experience because I walked with that before with my oldest daughter. I have 5 children.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing that she said to me was, I don't understand why this is going on. She said, the only thing that I can think of is when my daughter was 5 or 6 years old. she ran up to her husband and said, "You're not my dad," you know, and
Mm.
she was upset because she couldn't have her way. So I said, well, okay, I said, let me stop you there. I said, I've heard enough because I'm training myself now to hear and see
Correct,
what the
yeah,
need is.
correct.
So, you know, I have a tool. I've written my books. I kind of
Yep.
talked about certain things. I blessed her with one of my books. And I told her, I said, number one, the reason why the Lord had you to connect with me and open up and share, because I walked through that before I experienced that. What I learned out of that particular lesson was
Mm,
God had to turn hearts. Because when you put your husband or your kids, anything before God, you put them on a pedestal, God has a way of turning hearts because he wants
mhm,
you to stay right there with him. Nothing
mhm,
come before him at all. So
mm,
that goes back to seeking first the kingdom of God, and all
correct.
those things will be added unto you. It also go back to prayer. If you ask, he will give it unto you, but you got
Mhm,
to ask for wisdom and revelation and that knowledge during that time, and he'll give it to you, which bring
yeah,
me to my point number two of experience yesterday with my sister. And back at home, my godmother is 90 years old.
mhm,
She had to go through surgery, and my sister just broke down crying because she's taking care of her.
mhm,
And I pulled over on the side of the road because I was feeling that emotion too. And I was like, God, I can't be there, you know, to help. I wish I could, you know, and I'm listening to her just pour her heart out. So I told her, I said, you know what? I said, let's pray. And
mhm,
at that moment, I stopped and I prayed and I cried out for the Lord to be in the presence of the room
mhm,
right there with my godmother, but also for my sister. And I said, Lord, show up and show her that you are God. You are all things to us, and you make things possible. So
mhm,
sure enough, when she went to the hospital to check on my godmother, she didn't get out the car, she said, because she saw something. It was a guy walking into the hospital with a bat in his hand.
mm,
And she said she was watching him and she was like, where's this guy going? So immediately she stayed in the car. She didn't want to go in the hospital because she didn't know what was about to pop out. And
mm,
she said, you know what, Miranda? She said, now this is making me think. I'm seeing this guy go into the hospital with a bat. He's angry. She said, that's the reminder that people are hurting. She said,
yeah,
people are hurting and we have to be careful what we say, how we carry on and stuff like that. And I
mm,
told her at that moment, I said, this is why we have to pray. And I said, let's pray for that man right there because we don't know what's going on,
mhm,
but we recognize the hurt. So
yeah,
we began to pray. So she went to Starbucks, grabbed a bite to eat and something to drink. Right after that, she goes into the hospital, everything fine and peaceful. She go into my godmother's room, open up the door. There's her pastor, my godmother's pastor is in there, and his wife, and they praising the Lord. They in the word. She put the phone down, forgot I was on the phone, and I'm praising the Lord with them. It was like we just had service all of a sudden, and I was
yeah,
just crying. And I said, God, this is what you mean all along about trusting him with
mhm,
everything. We can't be there for our family members. We can't take on their stuff, but God can, because he
right,
said in his word, he never leaves us or
you
forsake
forsake
us.
me.
That's a promise. That's a promise. And we have to continue to build upon his promises and take him at his word. And I'm telling you, that just blessed me so, because for me, he had already told me, he said, Miranda, I need you to sit still from
Mhm,
9 to 11. Don't
mhm,
do nothing. Don't answer the phone. Don't check no emails. No nothing. Because
mhm,
I'm in a place in my life, I'm trying to hear what's the next thing. I feel like I'm going through another season where I have to continue to prepare.
yep,
And I was
yep,
like, what is it? I don't know what it is. But
mhm,
just like you said, when you have that moment, you don't know what it is. It's like you cloud it. So then you have to pause and say, okay,
yep,
what's clouding you from seeing and
mhm,
getting to and receiving that thing that God is trying to get onto you? And so when you were talking about the mantles, he's been speaking to me a lot about what that is and what it looked like: mantles, missions, and mandates. And
amen,
so he revealed to me I am carrying that mantle of apostle. So I
mm,
had to do a lot of studying on what apostle look like, how
Mm-hmm.
it operates and things like that. And I love how you said, don't get so religious minded or spiritual minded or whatever. We are spiritual beings. But my question was to God. I said, God, how do I do that? Because I have a heart for humanity. I'm a social
Mm-hmm.
butterfly. I like saying hello to people. I like to take them to lunch. I'm a giver. I'm like, what
Mm-hmm.
do this supposed to look like? So he showed me, he said, even in business, ministry, business relationships, it need to come in alignment with my Sermon on the Mount. So
Mm-hmm.
he had me go back to read Sermon on the Mount. But anytime when my attitude is jacked up and I'm all out of whack, emotions
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that, he has me going back up, looking back at the Beatitudes.
Yes.
So now those are the two things that I'm kind of meditating on right
Mm-hmm.
now and trying to hear a little bit more clearly about the next step, what it is that he want me to do, but also
Yes. Yes.
resting in him, trying to keep that peace. Because just like you said, we want to have fruit, but we want to have fruit remain. So to give you an example about the fruit, how he found it to me, I was having a conversation with another young lady that I'm coaching,
Mm-hmm.
and she said, Miranda, I noticed a lot of people running to Africa. And I said, yeah. She said, what is that all about? And I said, honestly, I don't know. I'm not getting involved in other people's affairs. I said, that's not my business. But I will tell you this. I said, the example that I had from watching the fruit, I said, because this is what I look at the fruit. I said, let's use Oprah Winfrey for an example.
Mm-hmm.
She went over, adopted some girls. All of these girls built the school,
Mm-hmm.
made, because the goal was the education. She has a passion for people to read books, get educated, and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
She did that. She accomplished that. Now all of those girls have graduated. And one of the things that I love is one of them, she's talking about her relationship and passion for the Lord and
Mm-hmm.
things like that. Little bit by little bit, she's sharing some things. I said, so for me, when I see fruit like that,
Mm-hmm.
that's for me. If I know I'm called globally, internationally, I know that already. But for me, if I was to be sent in another country, that's the goal. I'm going to ask the Lord, what's the need? Why am I
Right.
here? What
Right.
is the need? So when we're going through all of these changes like that, I think there's a lot of answers being revealed, but you hit it on the nail. Is letting go of that old season or old mentality
Right.
and really receiving what
Right.
he's trying to give to us now, because
Mm-hmm.
it's a new season. Things are
Mm-hmm.
changing. The money is going to be changing. That's
Mm-hmm.
going to be digital. We got to learn how to operate in that system, how to
Yep.
do things
Yep.
differently. um Things on the internet going to be changing a little bit more. We got to know how to
Everything.
do
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
Yes. So for me, I'm in that space now. I'm trying to make room for more capacity to receive the new things so I
Mm-hmm.
can continue to be more effective in the
Absolutely.
calling, in the mantles, in the missions, and in the mandate that he
Yeah.
have on my life.
Yes. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I love that. There was two things I want to piggyback off. Like you just said, everything's changing. I think we talked about it last week too, about the fourth and the fifth industrial revolution. Like we are really right there. And so literally
Mm-hmm.
we are in a position where on a spiritual level, human level, all the levels, God is trying to communicate a strategy to us to prepare and not just be a recipient of the change, but we have an opportunity in whatever our sphere of influence is to be a catalyst and have something to add to this change. So there's that. But the other part that I want to hone in on as well was even when we talk about leaving certain people and things behind, we do have to remember, and I love to say this, before your husband became your husband, that was God's man. Before your friend
Mm-hmm.
became your friend, whoever it is, the context, whomever you have to leave or separate from in a season or whatever, God's got them. We cannot enable people. We cannot keep people in codependency. As much as you feel like, well, if I don't step up, they're not gonna make it. That is not true. Let God be
Mm-hmm.
God. None of us are God. And so that's the other part I just want to chime in on real quick was understanding that we have to let people and things go, but know that God is going to take care of them. So, but thank you
Mhm.
again for sharing that. Ruthie, talk to me real quick, and then I see Anthony. Talk to me. Talk to me.
Good morning, Pastor Levi.
Top of the morning.
So I don't know if you see the picture is me. It's just an old pic. I have to figure that out because I haven't looked like that in a long time. But it reminded me of our message today. Unless it's coming out without no picture, which is okay. At
Yeah, it's
least you
not
know it's
showing the
me.
picture. I was looking at the
Yeah,
phone.
it's okay.
Did you text it?
Yeah, no, it's okay. I just wanted to mention that, it's interesting from where I was in that season, right? And where I
Mhm,
was when I took that picture to where I am today. It was like a
mhm,
reminder to me. But I want to say first, and I want to brief because I know we're trying to get other people to share. But I just
mhm,
want to thank
mhm,
you for, bringing forth this message because it really hit home for me. And I
mhm,
just want to say that when I was in Florida, I went to an event, and in that event, there was a lady, and she spoke a word into me, and she said that she sees that she sees a sword, and she also sees that I need to start writing,
mhm,
because she says that I need to start writing because what I've gone through in life is not for me, and it's going to be to help other people and free other people.
mhm,
I took that word that day and I ran with it because I said, wow, God, that was so like confirmation.
mhm,
I enjoyed the fact to hear comfort, knowing that even though I went through a lot in life, that is to really help other people, that it didn't go in vain, right?
mhm,
That word went past, and it wasn't really like I kept hearing that in my spirit, but I wasn't stopping to write. And I
mhm,
kept saying, Ruthie, you need to write. And I have to say, I've been like, I want to say, almost feeling disobedience with that,
mhm,
because the thing with me is that when I have too much and I don't write on paper, I get overwhelmed, and I forget
yeah,
little details that are going to be necessary when the time does come, when I have to share, when the time does come, when I have to say, give my testimony.
mhm,
So moving forward, this is why. So if you feel it in your spirit to write, and you feel like you've been pushing it off for a while and you don't know why, and you just keep letting life happen, and life keeps happening, and you're still not doing it, I'm
mhm,
telling you, like, I can't even afford to miss the mark. I'm not in my age.
yeah,
I want to say that transparency is healing,
yes,
because it is very, it's the way I put it is that I wrote it like this. I said, the first transparency is the first step to healing.
mhm,
And you need to first do that part first, because we try to
mhm,
figure out why this, why that for many years. I mean, I'm 45, and for
mhm,
years I've been just going through life with just this blame, this shame, because I couldn't figure out certain childhood traumas
mhm,
that have, I carried over into adulthood, into motherhood. And
yes,
I had to have a moment with my son recently, and I had to tell him, you know what? I'm sorry that you had to go through certain things because I was trying to get myself together. And
mm,
if that hurt you, I'm sorry. But there's going to be times that, yeah, there's going to be some people that we know we need to keep away, and we
mhm,
need to do it in a rightful manner. But there's also going to be times we also need to step up. And if we're wrong and we know in our hearts, we need to forgive, because there's somebody
yeah,
walking around with that pain in their heart. There's
yes,
someone walking around with that shame that's
yeah,
leaking over to adulthood, leaking over to childhood.
mhm,
I mean, I'm sorry, to adulthood, or into their motherhood or fatherhood.
yep,
And that needs to be cut off quick, because it
yes,
will leak into another root. I just
yeah,
want to say, as I'm, finishing off here, I just wanted to say that I started trying to work on myself recently. Of course, now I'm back in Mass, and I went on
mhm,
this journey to Florida. But I have to say that as I started to work, and a part of what I've been through, and even here at the 8 a.m. Strategic,
mhm,
service. I want to call it like a service. It doesn't feel like a class, because
right,
every
right, right,
message is such a blessing. And I just want to say that this is part of my healing journey. This has been
wow,
part of me doing the work. It has started here,
wow,
because you bring structure to our class, to this service, to
mhm,
us. You bring
mhm,
structure, you bring clarity, you bring confirmation. It's real,
wow,
because you deep down inside feel it. It's not because, oh, that was a good
yeah,
word. No, it's because you feel it. You feel
yeah,
it.
yeah,
I want to say also that some family members cannot go on this journey, this life journey with us, because
mhm,
they could drain the life out of us in certain situations. That doesn't mean
mhm,
that even though they could suck us dry, we have to stay focused, and we have to know it might be a season, it might be longer than a season, but we know because due through what we experienced with that family and member, what we need to do, I just want to say that,
Yeah, yeah. No, thank
you
you for
know,
sharing. I want to,
you're
I don't want
welcome.
to forget a thought. I love
No,
that.
go ahead.
I wanted to say, and big ups to you for the apology you said you gave to your son, because like you
Hmm.
just said, there's so many facets. Even in parenting, you're trying to figure it out at the same time. You always hear
Yeah.
that most people say like the firstborn is the one that gets the brunt end because they're getting you figuring it out. You're still trying to figure out your own life, depending on what age you had your children, because oftentimes most people have had children while they were still essentially in the mind children, but
Yeah.
so there's different things that are said and done that they don't even realize. So I just want to honor you and say big ups to you for doing that, because you have no idea what release that does. Just as I mentioned in my own life,
Hmm.
I haven't gotten that from the people in my own family who've verbally abused me and attacked me. And it created this defense. And y'all don't know this side of me, but growing up, I was very quiet. I was very to myself, but that was the enemy's plan, because here I am running my mouth now. So it was like, let me try to shut your mouth before you even have a desire to open it. So, and again, thank God for that. But you doing that, and for anybody who's a parent on here or whatever form of the relationship, if you can apologize and make things right, if you know or unaware, do that, because it frees people. And
Hmm.
especially when you're a mother or a father, you might not see yourself the way your children do, but you got to realize you are the giver of their life. You are
Yeah.
the avenue in which brought them here. So it's one thing for someone at the schoolhouse to talk about me, but when it's coming from the person that gave you life,
Hmm.
that carries a different level of weight that I can't even articulate. But I just want to say that and share that for everybody. As a leader, mother, etc., that's big ups to you for that, because that is so powerful. And there are so many parents and leaders and people in general who are prideful and do not
Yeah.
see their error and they're wrong. And people are hurting to this day because they refuse to make it right. And they keep projecting and deflecting, which is narcissistic. And that's a whole nother thing. And taking responsibility. All of this, even part of what you said, transparency is healing. So is taking responsibility. Taking
Yeah.
responsibility is healing. And yeah, I just want to say that. Why? Because you triggered my mind when you said that. So thank you
Oh no, it's
for doing
okay.
that.
Thank you for sharing that. I just
Mhm,
wanted to close with saying what you mentioned, and I feel like, being a mom at 21 was not easy because we all grew up together. By
mhm,
23, I already had my two boys.
mhm.
And like I told my son yesterday, I said, I love the fact that even though we grew up together, because of that moment, I was able to humble myself and say, you know what, I might have missed the mark somehow, because we were all like, literally, like, I was 21 is young to be raising, a
Yeah,
child,
yeah.
let alone 23 raising two. And I say that, I just want to mention this because today I'm 45, right? And I can't
Mhm.
even afford it. I do not want to miss the season because I'm not getting any older. I mean,
Yeah.
any younger. I'm sorry, I'm only getting older.
Mhm.
So I must, and like you mentioned, it hit me home this morning when you said how quickly and fast that I must get this quickly
Yeah.
because it's necessary. Because no more, if we can see that it was X, Y, and Z. In my case, I dealt with a lot of childhood trauma, and it
Mm,
became when after being a mother and a grandmother, I recently opened up to my mom and let her know something that happened in
mhm.
my childhood that she had no idea about. And I can't even tell you the shame and hurt and the sabotage that I did
Wow.
keeping that inside because I did not feel like I was able to share that with my mom. And when I did, it didn't go out the way I thought it would go. But the fact is, I set myself free and I did. And
Mhm.
now moving forward, I allow God to do the rest of the work in that area. And it doesn't hurt as much. So I know that I'm still a work in progress. And I just want to tell you, thank you, Pastor Levi. And
Yes.
for everybody that shares here, I don't want to make it too long. So God bless you. Thank you
Yes,
for this
yes. Thank
message.
you. And I wasn't sure if was today your birthday? Happy birthday if so.
No, no, no. Today's not my
Oh,
birthday.
oh, 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 oh. Well,
you
happy
know.
birthday anyway. Happy birthday to
All
everybody.
right. Thank you.
Because
God bless. Thank you.
we're birthing into new
I
things.
received
Yes.
I received the new birth, the new birth.
Absolutely,
Amen.
yes. In
Amen.
fact, that was one of the things that was said to me is that I personally, God, it's so crazy because I was texting y'all about the renewing and the refreshing, and it didn't even hit myself. And they're like, "You're going through a renewal," and I was like, "Whoa, this is crazy." Anywho, this is great. I love y'all. This is amazing. Anthony, talk to me, sir.
What's happening?
What it do? What it do?
I try not to have nothing to say, but you know,
It's
um, because what I was gathering from one of the genesis of your messages or of the message this morning was
uh-huh.
it's important to deal with childhood traumas.
Yes. Yes.
Um, to really even dissect them,
Mm-hmm.
to see how they may or may not have affected your psyche, even how you operate today, even if sometimes even what we perceive as good, what you stated, could be an unhealthy way to execute it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and that just really just kind of hit me because that's kind of been something I've always said, but it just really hit me differently
Yeah, yeah,
today.
yeah.
So the question for you is there real dangers in not dealing with those childhood traumas and or depressions?
Yes. There's absolutely real dangers. Um, and let's step it back because again, like I was saying earlier, terms and terminology such as traumas and wounds and trauma bonds and all that, nobody was talking about that kind of stuff back in the day. We were raised, you just take it, you just whatever. Counseling, who does that? So I say that to say,
Right.
look at how life was when no one was talking about those things. And look at the lifespan, especially for men. Men are typically dying quicker than women. And I believe part of that reason is even if counseling and all that wasn't involved, women tend to be a bit more expressive and have communities, even just amongst themselves or girlfriends, even if it's not a conference, so to speak, or whatever, at least to get it out. Whereas men,
Right.
we never really had a safe space up until now, so to speak, to get stuff out because opening your mouth, first of all, we're protectors. Even while I was talking, I never told y'all which family member did this, that, and third, because I'm still protecting them. Because that's just who I am.
Right,
I'm
right.
going to not protect. But I would be lying to myself if I didn't say, but you're hurting me. So imagine how many men have gone to an early grave because of stress. And then, like I was saying, the cycle. If you're stressed out, then you're going to start drinking, or you start drinking like crazy. Now you're killing brain cells. Now you like so to your question, yes, it leads you to an early death and not even living the fullness of life while you're on the earth because it opens the door for other things. Like the reason it's so powerful is because now that I have this revelation, I am easily able to say now, no, I'm not doing that. No, I'm not doing that. Like when you are not living in the fullness of your purpose, you're just going to work and you're just doing whatever. So then people invite you to do stuff and you're like, sure, I ain't doing nothing, even though it's not bad. But now you're going. But what does you going to that event or that place have to do with your purpose and your vision? But if you don't know your purpose and your vision and you're distracted because you haven't dealt with those wounds and those traumas, now it's causing you to start going to every place, every whatever, and you're being diverted from your life's purpose and course. So yes, it throws you off horribly because you do things that you don't even know why you're doing it. You won't go places because you don't know it, out of fear. So yes, there are major ramifications. Like imagine, and I can only speak for myself. I know, like I said, I've been feeling a burden and I couldn't identify it that has been robbing me of being fully present in moments of just having fun, going to the movies or whatever. I'll be laughing 1 minute, but then something will trigger and I'm sad. Nobody would know, but on the inside, I felt it. but I couldn't figure out what it was. So again, just in your own life, thinking like, what random moments happen that try to throw your day in a different way when you said, I'm gonna have a good day today. I'm up, I worked out, I'm in the work. And then this thing keeps getting me. Like, again, I go on and on. Answer your question.
Oh yeah,
yes, there are,
yeah.
because it's
Because you
loaded.
know, back at my time coming up, one of the things, it was like really, really a bad thing that could come back to haunt you if you sought counseling, especially
Yeah,
psychiatric counseling.
yeah.
There was something loose in you. It meant you had snapped. It meant you were
Mhm.
about to snap. It meant you were loony. Um, job. If a potential employer found out you had, it could go
Mhm.
bad for you. You might not get a job. If they found out you did it while working, you could not get the job.
Yeah.
You could be turned down for different volunteer roles, like if you was trying to say help coach a softball team in the community center or whatever. So there
Mhm.
was so many stigmas behind counseling and psychiatric help that just people just simply would not. You would be tore up from the floor up
Yes.
from different things that people had done to you. But it was like, but if I found out that somebody finds out I went to counseling, they're
Yeah.
gonna say I'm cuckoo.
And that's
They're
a
gonna say
whole
something's wrong with you.
Yeah, and I was gonna say that's a whole nother piece. 'Cause I was talking to a friend of mine, a mentor of mine actually, and I want to say y'all might be around the same age group. She said the same exact thing, the same exact thing, and she literally
Mhm.
said, "I know I got stuff I need to deal with, but I was brought up in a culture that's literally what you just said is what she said." So even that is an example of a wheat and a tear thing. The culture of that day said this, so now that's become your doctrine.
Mhm.
And so then it
So
hinders,
definitely.
and that's why I said, and imagine all the people, like my grandfather, he died of a heart attack or a stroke in his 60s. And although it's old in age, 60s not old when you really look like that is not old. My grandmother's in her 80s now, like just to give context. He died in his 60s because of some heart stuff that was a cycle of unresolved issues and the burden of adulthood, the burden of being a man, old school Southern military man who dealt with slavery, never processed it, who, like I said, military, never processed it. And because he never processed it, he lived a life being a good man, man of God, took care of his family. But it's like you don't even get to live in the fruits of your labor because of the unresolved
Mhm.
issues that brought you to an early death. That's what I'm saying. It
And
matters.
it also caused you to age so much quicker. I remember
Yes.
growing up, being seeing people that were in their 50s, they were old.
Yeah.
If you were
Yeah.
in your 60s, you were borderline ancient, so to speak.
Mm.
You were
Yeah.
not vibrant. People then didn't run marathons. They didn't bike. They
Hmm.
didn't hike. They didn't
Hmm.
vacation. You know, they did a lot of things that people are doing now in their 50s and 60s, even in 70s, was
Hmm.
unheard of back in the 60s and 70s. It just did
Right.
not happen. You were old and what have you. And
And
it's like now it's a whole different
oh,
thing.
yeah, 60 the new 20. Because again, there's language for it now. Where now
Yeah.
people are realizing, oh, I don't have to accept that. Like we talked about when we first started, false agreements. We're accepting these false agreements because the culture said so. Who's the culture? Who said?
Right.
Like, and so we just accept it. And that's what so many people
Yeah.
do. So that's what you said. That's why now you see people in their 60s, 70s, 80s living their best life, looking younger. They're eating differently because they understand that the mind does, or the brain rather, does not die off just because of age. The brain stops developing the more you stop feeding it information. The moment you stop
Yeah.
growing and learning and evolving is when your brain goes into default just whatever mode. But nobody taught that. This is again, let's bring it back to
They did.
Bible. My people perish because of a lack of knowledge. All of this is the art and the kingdom principle of knowledge.
Because
So
when
yes,
you look at biblically, so many of them people biblically lived into the hundreds.
yes,
You know
yes,
what I mean? I mean, they were 700 years old, 500 years old,
yup.
400 years old. So
So what
being
happened,
over, yeah, exactly,
right?
exactly. We allowed, like you said, the culture, the times to change our narrative on what we believe to be good, what we believe right. We see it happening in our society today.
Mm-hmm.
What was wrong is now right, and what is right is
Is
now
wrong.
wrong.
Yup.
And how dare you talk about it in any other different type of a form?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like we have to deal with those things for real, for real, for real. When I was
Yeah.
growing up, Levi, the saying was, "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but
The
words can
words
never
will
hurt
never
me."
hurt me. Yup. Yup.
That's what we say. We
Lie.
would say, we would go to the teacher. Teacher, he said I was fat. Why are you whining? Sticks and stones may break your bones, but words will never hurt you. You keep saying that, and you'll overpower that. But the whole problem was we never dealt with the person that was doing that. So the more that became in our psyche, the more it affected us. You know, to the
Mm-hmm.
point, like you said, well, I was just agreed.
Yup.
You
Yup.
know, if I play the game that you're playing me, then maybe that'll get you to stop or whatever, you know, or maybe if I just kind of accept what you're saying to me, I'll be so much better and fit in, and maybe
Mm-hmm.
what you do won't bother me as much.
Yup.
And so now we're 30 years old, 40 years old, sometimes grandparents, and those kind of things are still dealing with us. So that's
Yup.
why I was just kind of curious, do those things bring about a danger as far as how we even affect the next generation?
Right, because then you're reteaching that. And that's what all this is really even deeper than what I could get to today. But right. And then think about it. If you have this skewed mentality, not only are you teaching it to the next generation, but what if you got a job and you are now the mayor or you're in government and now you're a decision maker and you're creating policies that further hurt people because of your unresolved trauma, and now you're a leader. You're charismatic, you're funny, you might have a good heart, but the way you process, this is why even when it comes to voting and political things and all that, people talk about having representation. Because if you don't have representation, people that speak like you, who've been through what you've been through, you have people making laws and rules that are not like you. And so now you're forced. This goes back, like we said, what happened? How did they go from living to be 500, 700 years old in Bible days, and now we could barely hit 70 and 60 in these days? It's because perversion creeps in, just like we saw in Matthew. When the seed was growing, the enemy put weeds. And that's what's happening. But then I'm gonna veer off real quick. And then Ali, I know you want to say something real quick and we'll wrap up. But then you go into satanic concentrations, who then are now in leadership with corrupt minds that now build cities to say only the black people can live here, and whites can live here, and Hispanics can only live here. And in your areas, we're gonna dictate you get this type of food, while this culture gets this type of food, and the food they're giving us is food that over time kills us early. They do that because it also then taps into controlling the population control. So this, when I tell you this thing is really deep, and how what you deal with and what you've all that shows up as an adult, and now you're the principal of a school and you're corrupt. This is why you got these pastors who keep having stuff go on, because there's unresolved stuff. God can still use you to prophesy and you're still traumatized. We've seen it. God, you can still have a #1 record. You can still be a billionaire. God can still use you. You can do great exploits and be the best person, but still go to an early grave, or get caught up in a scandal, or get caught up in something because you never dealt with the child on the inside of you. And all it takes is a divorce, and it triggers you into a hole. All it takes is being fired from a job, and it triggers you into a hole. All it takes is the right person on the wrong day or whatever day to say something to you, and you snap. You're not just snapping because of what happened. You're snapping because that's accompanying what happened in childhood, and you never dealt with it. So that's the severity of this thing. One, it's like a snowball effect, and the more you just sweep it under the rug, because like you said, sticks and stones may break my bone. Sticks and however it Gardner forgot. Y'all know what it is, but all those things, they sound good at the moment, but it's not good. It's not good. Aaliyah, real quick, I know you said you want to say something else, and then we will wrap up and get up out of here for the day.
Yes, I wanted to say something because you mentioned something about purpose and things taking you away from purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And when you say that, I was like a light bulb turned on inside my head because I'm sitting here this morning and I'm asking God, company that I'm at, since I'm working there, it's an amazing company and stuff like that, but I think it's like really it's taking me away from my purpose more than it's taking me to
Yes.
purpose, right? And I
Yes.
was just telling somebody I know, it's a very wealthy company and stuff like that. And I was like, last week, I was going to say, but I didn't say, but I was asking God, why was I feeling, in the first couple of days, it was really well. But
Mm-hmm.
then I started feeling something in my stomach about being there. And I was like, God, why am I feeling this thing? I'm feeling like I'm being stifled in
Mm-hmm.
this room when I come to work,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then I had a dream about a coworker, and I was like, God, why did I dream them like that? Why did I dream that dream? And the
Mm-hmm.
next day, God gave me the revelation that this person practices witchcraft,
Yep.
right? And I was like, they now the dots come together. This is why they don't give me that much work because
Mm-hmm.
the job it's commissioned. So
Mm-hmm.
I was like, they weren't giving me any job, and I'm not gonna hit the target if I don't get commission, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I was like, why is this happening and stuff like that? Because in the beginning, they were all being nice with me. And then all of a sudden it changed. And
Mm-hmm.
when God revealed to me that this person practiced witchcraft, I was like, oh my gosh, now I understand why they're not giving me work.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And yesterday we were out and stuff like that. And literally, God was showing me, like, Aaliyah, this is not your place.
Yeah.
This is not your place. I mean, you don't fit in here,
Mm-hmm.
you
Mm-hmm.
know? Like it's just not for you. There might be like a lot of, you get to go here, you get to go there, but it's literally gonna take you out of purpose.
Yes. Yeah.
So you have to make a serious decision here. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
want to walk the right path
Mm.
or you want to compromise,
Correct. Correct. Yeah. And I'm glad you
right?
shared that, because not only do you have the witchcraft side of that, but that goes back to the whole nucleus of all of this. When you have clouded judgment because of trauma, you accept working at jobs and you accept going to different places. But in this context, again, working at jobs that in your mind, let me just be grateful I got a job, when you're not even realizing, even though you're making money, it's not the most you could make. And that too is diverting you out of your purpose, because you're like, well, let me just take what I got. Where'd that mindset come of just take what I can get? Where did this slavery, bondage, poverty, like just be grateful? Like, we got to stop taking that out of context. Why do you have to work that kind of job and allow them to pay you that kind of money or not give you work? Like, all of that goes back to how you see yourself because of childhood things or what you were taught. Just take it. Why? Why am I taking it? You get paid more in companies for the higher level of stuff that you deal with. So if I'm yet dealing with more and more and more, but my pay's not increasing, I'll be honest with y'all, I'm looking at my job now with the side eye. Like this, when you have this type of revelation, it makes you analyze everything. Why did I accept this job? Why did I accept this? Why did I accept that? You accepted it because of how you viewed yourself. Why do you view yourself that way? That's where the internal work comes in. Because there's plenty of people who don't have degrees and they're making buku money. There's plenty of people who don't come from wealthy families and they're doing amazing things. What has stifled us? What has hindered us? Why do we feel like we can't work in the boardroom? If you got a stuttering problem, okay, who cares? Work on it and still go. What does that do anything? There's people who don't. I saw something where someone didn't have an arm or something and they just got their degree. Or someone like, there's people who have all type of ailments, diseases, whatever, and yet they're still prevailing because of their mindset. Everything rises and falls at the mind, but your mindset is dictated by how you view yourself in your soul and what was projected on you. So yeah, all of this, I hope it's making sense. All of this is working together and we compartmentalize and don't even realize it. Where you work is a reflection of how you view yourself. What you eat is a reflection of how you view yourself. I'm gonna say this last thing in hush, and this is probably gonna be a bit dramatic, but I just want to drive a point. I forget the guy's name. I think it's Dr. Bobby Price or his name is Bobby for sure. Dr. Bobby said, who is a legitimate doctor in whatever it is with food and different things. I think he used to work for the CDC. And he now has several books on being a vegan and healthy eating and all of that. And someone asked him a personal question about who he dates. And he literally said, because of his mindset and him doing the work and all that, he said he will not date a woman that eats from McDonald's. Now, it sounds judgmental at first sight, but he said that based upon his level of knowledge and what he's doing with his body. And the statement I'm using is because he realized this statement is showing what you're eating. If you're choosing to put that into your body, you're screaming what your mentality is without even knowing it. Now, I'm not talking about if you can't afford things and that's not what I'm saying. But when you know how to do better and you can afford to do better, why are you choosing to eat something that is killing you because it has a good price tag on it? Either you didn't know better or you're just doing it because you want to. Everything you do is screaming of your mentality. What you wear is screaming of your mentality. Where you live, what you accept is a revealer of your mentality. So yes, there's a work that has to be done. So as we wrap up, your assignment is to figure out what are you doing that is hurting you and messing you up, because you got to get yourself together. It'll help you in your business. You will see everything in your life change when you deal with you. And that's what God wants to get me to get to today. All right. I love y'all. I'll try to get this uploaded as soon as possible so you can go back and listen and really hear what was being said and shared. Yeah, God's shifting us, and I'm so grateful and thankful that we are all on this journey together. And I promise you all, my vow to you all is the more I grow, I'm gonna bring it all back to y'all. And all I want to see is y'all be your best life, not for somebody's church, but for you as a human being, as a mother, as a woman, as a man, as a human being. That's what I want to see. All right. Love y'all. Peace and chicken grease. Go be blessed.